The Walking Dead accidentally became a record of survivors choosing comfort and making someone else pay in blood. Rick Grimes loses allies, Herschel Green loses his life, and Maggie Green keeps inheriting communities shattered by somebody else's impulse. That's why today I'm breaking down the biggest mistake in each of The Walking Dead's 11 seasons and explaining the catastrophe each one caused, starting with the choice that turned a rooftop argument into gunfire, a herd, and a debt that lasted for years. Season 1, my reading, arming volatile, racist. Merle with a scoped bolt-action rifle risked rooftop abandonment. Rick's cop instincts seemed to favor de-escalation and dignity. Armed Merle was apparently one bad sentence from turning Atlanta into his personal fireworks display. He got the chance. Firing wildly at walkers, Merle screamed from the rooftop, announcing the group's location to corpse-packed Atlanta. The herd swarmed the building, trapping everyone inside. Merle seemed insulted by restraint, then beat T-Dog and grabbed control, forcing Rick to cuff him. One rifle, one rooftop, several hundred walkers. Their panicked escape cost time, supplies, and the clean route they needed. Merle stayed behind, eventually cutting off his hand to escape. Daryl absorbed the humiliation and carried the grievance forward. Merle's ordeal may have eased his path to the governor, whose campaign later bloodied the prison. Many fans point to abandonment as Rick's mistake. The stronger reading starts earlier. Tolerance created the crisis. Crisis created abandonment. That reading makes Maggie's family losses echo comfort, winning one conversation at a time. Rick Grimes at least made his call in the middle of a firefight with seconds to think. The next one was made slowly, in daylight, over weeks, by a man who was certain he was doing something kind. Season 2, Herschel Green turned the farm's safest-looking building into a loaded gun with one wooden hinge. He believed walkers were sick people awaiting a cure. His wife Annette, stepson Sean, and neighbors were family, so the Greens herded the dead into the barn and locked it. Grief and faith made the choice understandable. That packed a dozen or so walkers beside everyone's beds. Rick's compromise with Herschel lasted an afternoon. Herschel's exception lasted months, groaning behind timber as the group camped, argued, buried bodies, and searched woods for Sophia. One rotten latch could erase the farm before breakfast. Very rustic, extremely flammable. In episode 7, Pretty Much Dead Already, Shane forces it open. He releases them, and the group shoots them one by one while Herschel watches his family collapse again. Then Sophia steps through the doorway. Rick fires the final shot. Nothing in canon confirms how long Sophia had been inside. The brutal reading, time, fuel, safety, and hope vanished, while its answer stood behind a property door. Carol loses her daughter. Maggie watches trust in her father fracture. The farm becomes a refuge the group can no longer fully trust. Fans can debate whether grief excuses him. The hinge settles it. A feeling overruled the survival rule, and everybody lived beside the bill. Both disasters began with someone protecting their own. The next betrayal lasts longer. Someone sleeps beside a man preparing to kill her friends and keeps choosing one more night. Season 3. Andrea was the one person in position to try to stop the prison war and instead stayed with the governor. Woodbury gave her safety, attention, and Philip Blake, who seemed gentler while pouring her a drink. Then she saw the fish tank room. Severed walker heads floated behind glass while the governor treated apocalypse trauma like a hobby with excellent lighting. The heads warned her. Prisoner torture followed. Andrea watched his cruelty up close, learned he was preparing aggressive moves against Rick's prison, then delayed warning them. Basically, she saw the villain's basement and went back to bed. While she hesitated, Woodbury armed its people, organized raids, and launched an assault that nearly overwhelmed the prison. People died on both sides. Maggie had watched her family pay for other people's private impulses, and Andrea's hesitation coincided with that household pattern escalating into open warfare. When Andrea tried reaching the prison, the governor caught her, locked her up, and turned her into leverage. Her escape attempt ended with a walker bite, and Michonne stayed beside her as infection finished the argument Andrea delayed all season. She remains the show's best missed opportunity. Andrea had access to both communities, history that might have made Rick listen, and knowledge that might have made Woodbury hesitate. Many fans read the arc as forced stupidity keeping the plot moving. The criticism lands because one honest sentence might have changed everything. The barn nearly destroyed one family. This choice put two communities on the bill, and the next disaster comes from a leader who moves instantly, acts alone, and removes his own best fighter before the first shot is fired. Season 4. Rick Grimes exiles the prison's most ruthless protector for being ruthless. Then the people she was built to fight roll through the fence. That's the Season 4 mistake. Decisiveness becomes private impulse. After the illness outbreak, Carol Pelletier admits she killed Karen and David and burned their bodies to slow the infection. Rick takes that confession as judge, jury, and one-man removal van. He sends her away, keeps the decision from the council, and creates zero process for lethal calls made alone. Very democratic, Sheriff. The Andrea disaster showed hesitation destroying a peace deal. This flips it. Decisiveness removes a fighter and strategist before the governor's second attack. The show leaves Carol's potential effect on the battle unknowable. Her absence still reduced the prison's defenders at the worst moment. In Episode 8, Too Far Gone, the fences fail. Herschel Green is executed, and the community scatters. Maggie watches her father die because another man chooses personal vengeance over any plan the group could survive. Carol might have changed nothing. She might have spotted an angle others missed, because spotting the murderous angle is basically her job description. Canon leaves Carol's deserved punishment open. Follow the pattern. Rick handled a leadership crisis as personal judgment, and secrecy made the punishment arbitrary. Carol returns at Terminus and saves the survivors from outside, a bit of cosmic sarcasm. He removed her for killing 2 people to protect the group. She protects them through violence that no one else was in a position to deliver at that moment. The next catastrophic choice takes about 2 seconds, made by someone held captive for weeks, and ends with a bullet through her head. Season 5, Beth Green dies after winning. The hostage exchange is finished. Both sides have their people, and everyone is walking away. Then Officer Dawn Lerner adds one possessive demand. Beth answers with scissors, and 3 seconds erase the entire escape. Grady Memorial runs on coercion dressed as public service. Dawn's officers rescue people, manufacture debts, and force patients into labor until those imaginary bills are paid. Beth survives that system on her own terms, protects other patients, challenges Dawn, and grows into someone who finally trusts her own judgment. Then Dawn demands Noah back as hers. The deal is closed. Noah still agrees to return because Dawn has a gun, a badge, and the emotional stability of a shopping cart on stairs. Everyone could leave alive. Beth instead steps forward, reveals concealed scissors, and drives them into Dawn's shoulder. Dawn reflexively fires. The bullet strikes Beth in the head, killing her instantly in front of Daryl Dixon and Rick Grimes. Daryl shoots Dawn dead before the room can process what happened. Guns rise across both groups, and one twitch nearly turns a completed exchange into a corridor massacre. Carol had days to make her private choice. Beth gets one breath. The same pattern now executes in the length of a handshake. Nothing in canon declares exactly what Beth expected. Follow her season-long arc, though, and the reading is brutal. She'd proved she could endure Grady, outthink its officers, and protect people inside it. Her confidence finally outran her odds. Fans remain genuinely split. One side sees bravery perfectly consistent with Beth's growth. The other sees engineered shock, because stabbing an armed officer with tiny scissors feels like challenging a lawnmower using cutlery. Both readings land on Maggie carrying the cost. After losing Herschel, she reaches the hospital and watches Daryl emerge holding her sister's body. Grady also loses its strongest chance at reform from within. One person's impulse costs 1 life here. Give that flaw a map, a radio, and thousands of walkers to steer. And the bill arrives with a whole town attached. Season 6. Rick Grimes built a plan for thousands of walkers that could be destroyed by one truck or one stranger leaning on a horn. Alexandria got the truck failure and the horn, plus a plan whose communication chaos made both fatal. The quarry near Alexandria held a massive herd behind a line of trucks. Rick saw those vehicles failing and designed a moving corridor with staggered convoys, coordinated noise, people on foot, and cars pacing the edges. Thousands of walkers would follow one controlled route away from the walls. Simple, provided the apocalypse respected traffic management. Rick had recently arrived as an outsider, yet his confidence outran the caution of people who had kept Alexandria functioning. Many residents had barely fought walkers, and his operations scattered them into small teams where timing mattered everywhere at once. The quarry forced the schedule when a blocking truck gave way early. Then part of the herd slipped off course. Great, the world's worst group project had begun before half the class understood the assignment. The wolves attacked Alexandria during the operation, and their truck horn screamed across the area. The sound pulled walkers toward the community, while the raid consumed the people who might have defended it. The herd eventually breached the perimeter. Residents died, walls buckled, and houses took heavy damage. Out on the route, Glenn and Nicholas became separated from the others, trapped in an alley, and driven onto that dumpster where Nicholas nearly took Glenn with him. Beth's impulse had charged one life to one room. Rick's certainty spread the same flaw across a convoy, a herd, and a town. Maggie almost lost her husband in that alley, another bill created by somebody else's private conviction. The pattern keeps scaling. One survivor elevates his instinct, somebody else absorbs the consequence. Canon leaves the better solution unresolved. Fortifying the walls or culling the quarry gradually remain fan arguments, and either carries risks. Follow the pattern of the operation itself, and the stronger conclusion sits there. Rick's design carried so many weak points that any outside shock could collapse it. The wolves simply arrived first. Overconfidence with a plan can survive. The crueler impulse arrives with somebody else holding the bat and punishes the man kneeling 3 places away. Season 7. Daryl Dixon throws The Walking Dead's most satisfying punch, and the show answers with Glenn Rhee's skull. Negan has just beaten Abraham Ford to death with Lucille, making the clearing a demonstration of total obedience. Daryl's lunge breaks the lesson open. For one beautiful second, the group remembers it has a spine. Negan calls the punch a violation of his new order, then kills Glenn with Lucille in front of Maggie Green, kneeling close enough to watch every blow. That is horror's arithmetic. Daryl gets defiance. Maggie pays with her husband. The person acting survives. The bystander carries the bill. Glenn, the group's steadiest moral anchor and sharpest strategist, turned panic into workable plans. His death means that stabilizing voice never reaches Hilltop, where Gregory's weak leadership is already straining under competing egos. Daryl takes the remaining punishment, dragged to the sanctuary, isolated, psychologically tortured, and forced to endure relentless humiliation. Glenn's death follows him into later conflicts. Fans still debate whether Negan had already chosen a second victim. The episode gives one visible trigger, Daryl's punch, and presents Glenn's execution as immediate punishment. That keeps the debate alive. Negan owns the cruelty. Daryl's impulse starts the chain reaction. Rick's overconfidence once spread a private decision across Alexandria over several days. Daryl compresses the same mistake into one swing. Courage and catastrophe become the same gesture, and the person paying for it is kneeling beside the body. Terror worked in that clearing, buying total obedience from everyone still breathing, instantly and completely. The harder test arrives when a room full of lieutenants already understands exactly how the trick is done. Season 8. Negan built one of the largest armies the survivors had faced, then handed its steering wheel to 2 men quietly sawing through the axle. Simon wanted Negan's throne. Dwight wanted revenge for the woman Negan took from him. Both stayed near power, wearing the same uniform and receiving the same orders, while agendas made the Saviors a security hazard with motorcycles. Dwight fed Rick and Daryl's Savior movements from inside. His warnings helped the Coalition anticipate attacks, redirect their pressure, and hit Negan's forces when surprise should belong to the Saviors. His reports steadily cost Negan ground, while he had no idea who spent it. Simon made the damage louder. Negan wanted the scavengers alive as leverage, so Simon murdered nearly the entire group, sparing only Jadis, and erasing a potential bargaining piece. That captured the season's mistake. An order exists, somebody feels smarter, and others pay for the confidence. Great, add a massacre to the loyalty program? The irony sharpens because Negan recognized disobedience in every corner of his operation except the room that mattered. He punished independent judgment, then treated fear as proof his lieutenants remained useful. Glenn's death showed one impulse costing the Coalition its best man. Negan scaled that weakness into an empire beside him. By the finale, Dwight's sabotage and Simon's ambition made internal authority dead weight. Rick's Coalition defeated Negan, captured him, and watched the Savior structure collapse almost immediately once its central threat lost control. Maggie led people through wreckage left by men who trusted instincts more than the plan. That is the season's cruel symmetry. The man who ruled through fear created a workplace where truth became a survival risk, so the people closest to him quietly chose their own version of loyalty. Every collapse so far belongs to somebody who remembers the old world and its rules. The next catastrophe comes from a child raised entirely inside this one, and the lesson those communities taught him is ugly enough to outlive the war. Season 9. Henry proves the apocalypse can teach a child everything, and transfer 0 of the judgment. Raised by Carol Pelletier and Ezekiel, survivors who spot terrible decisions from 3 counties away, Henry fixates on Lydia after the time jump. Alpha's daughter makes him feel he's the one person who truly understands the Whisperers. His feelings outrank the agreement. Same poison, younger bottle. Henry leaves the kingdom for Hilltop, then slips away alone chasing Lydia, and answers about her people. He knows they wear walker skin, move among the dead, turning any forest into the world's worst costume party. Experienced backup would have helped Alpha's people capture him. Daryl Dixon and Connie follow, infiltrating Whisperer territory to pull him out, dragging skilled fighters from communities already balancing on matchsticks. Henry wants to save one person. Everyone else pays. The contact escalates until Alpha walks into the fair, abducts multiple victims, and marks her border with 10 severed heads on pikes. Henry's is among them. For Carol, this is the cruelest inheritance. She buried Sophia after finding her in a Season 2 barn. Years of caution, brutality, and survival later, another child she raised returns on a stick. Ezekiel loses his son, their marriage starts collapsing, and the kingdom enters winter carrying a wound it can't shelter from. The fan reading is openly interpretive, yet the pattern is clear. Henry's recklessness gives a replacement character Carl Grimes' comic fate. Negan's downfall showed adults on every side shared the flaw. Henry shows it survives generational handover intact. A teenager did it alone, and inexperience at least covers the explanation. The next disaster takes 7 seasoned fighters, one confined space, and warning signs sitting openly in front of them. Season 10. 7 veteran survivors follow footprints into a cave, find Alpha's Walker horde, and fall through her trap floor into its tunnels. The collective mistake. 7 veterans share one terrible idea, and the group proceeds without securing an exit. They're tracking Alpha's missing horde through rugged, unfamiliar country when signs lead underground. Daryl, Carol, Aaron, Jerry, Magna, Connie, and Kelly descend to find it. The horde is already there, packed through tunnels like an entire army stored in a basement with the door forgotten. The route back caves in. Escape becomes an obstacle course of injuries, near drownings, darkness, and separation in spaces barely wide enough to turn around. A second collapse seals Magna and Connie behind rubble, leaving their fate uncertain for a long stretch, while the Whisperer conflict escalates outside. Strategically, this removes 7 fighters and planners, while their enemies apply maximum pressure. Carol wants answers, Daryl wants the trail, and the group follows the sense the horde is close enough to touch. To me, Maggie's years of paying for other people's impulses make experience feel like a bill. Henry's choice reads as youth and infatuation. The cave group seems to echo his trap in Daylight, carrying 10 years of lessons while, you could argue, curiosity takes the wheel. Fans frequently cite the cave as one of the show's most contrived group decisions. On that reading, the criticism lands. The hunters find the horde by standing inside its trap. That trap was built out of rock and teeth, and it was at least visible from the outside once you were standing in it. 7 veterans entered to find Alpha's horde. Their experience became another liability the moment curiosity put them underground together. Season 11. Eugene hands Alexandria's weak points to strangers on a radio because he feels drawn in by a kind voice. The Commonwealth receives a floor plan through a relationship Eugene experiences as friendship, and 3 communities pay for it. He hears Stephanie, a Commonwealth representative, and imagines a vast, advanced society. Alexandria survived through caution, rationing, walls, and people who understand each risk. Eugene leads himself, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess toward that promise, carrying Alexandria's vulnerabilities into the conversation. That decision sounds like diplomacy. It becomes an intelligence gift. Pamela Milton and Lance Hornsby gain a route into Alexandria, Hilltop, and Oceanside, converting them into satellites through authority, military pressure, and resource seizures. Hornsby's maneuvering fuels a Commonwealth crisis, while Alexandria's supply hunger survives under uniforms and paperwork. This makes Eugene the series' most sympathetic flaw. On Atlanta's rooftop, Rick Grimes struck Merle Dixon with a rifle butt, handcuffed him to a pipe, and left him there with the rifle on the roof. Eugene echoes that decision's underlying gamble, trading Alexandria's soft spots for the relief of being heard. Maggie Green is still standing there dealing with the consequences after losing her father, sister, and Glenn. Several veterans repeated versions of the pattern. Eugene gives it its cleanest form. The evidence supports a structural reading. 3 communities subordinated, resources seized, and a political system pushed toward fracture. The cost spreads through homes, leadership, supply routes, and trust. That makes the decade's answer brutally simple. These people learn a rule, then one lonely person decides comfort deserves a special exception. Eugene Porter hands over Alexandria's weak points on a radio, because someone finally spoke to him kindly, which, in my reading, echoes the trade Rick Grimes made on that Atlanta rooftop. Comfort now, corpses later, and the Commonwealth simply invoices it at scale with paperwork instead of a bat. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.